city limits as of late. If we look at it, we have one up here on North Market Street that just opened. Very nice one, by the way. Love their boiled peanuts. You should try them. We have one going in on South Market Street, just past the 5 Points intersection. And I'm sure that this one down on South Market Street by Waco Field will be approved next week. And as I said, I'm not either for or against it, but I just have some general observations. It seems to me that we have more gas stations coming into Troy than we do storage units. But yet, we have passed and extended a moratorium on storage units for obviously good reasons, or it wouldn't have passed. Will this council take a look at possibly a moratorium on the number of gas and convenience stations coming into the city limits? I mean, years ago we used to be known as the city of beauty shops and banks, and now I'm afraid we're going to become known as the city of gas stations. So moving forward, will this council be taking a look at a moratorium on convenience stores? Just something to think about. Just something to think about. And now on to the big elephant in the room. I have here in my hands a copy of the decision that was rendered on June the 23rd by Judge Stacey Wall in case number 23 CV 238, which I will be referring to here on out as a 238 case. Part of that statement says, on May 9, 2023, Mr. England issued the latest in a series of varying adjudication orders declaring the tavern building to be unsafe and a serious hazard, and ordering 116 to abate all unsafe conditions immediately. Now, that was based on a May 28, 2023 report authored by Wright and Bruns. Now, following the June 16th inspection, Mr. England pleads in his verified complaint that conditions are for worse, and is worth noting here for the first time in 18 months. Court's words, not mine. States, quote, the north wall of the premises is pulling apart from the rest of the building and structure and is in immediate danger of toppling down onto Main Street, end quote. I have a question I'd like to ask this administration. If that building was so unsafe on July 16th, why did you wait 8 days before issuing your order to shut down the street? If it was as unsafe as you say it was, shouldn't that building have been shouldn't that street have been shut down on June 16th instead of waiting 8 days? I think you wanted to get into for lack of better, I won't say what I want to say, but I think you wanted to get into a little tit for tat with Judge Wall. You waited till the decision was issued, and because you didn't get the decision you wanted, you shut down the street. This is a tit for tat retaliation game, in my opinion, and it has to stop. We need that street reopened. If this building was going to topple, to be honest with you, it would have done so 3.5 years ago. But that building has been standing for 3.5 years. It is... I'm sorry. Furthermore, the court goes on to say, the court will not order the immediate demolition of the tavern building. Apart from the fact that in the 109 case, which was decided last week, I'll have more on that in a minute, the court has significant concerns about the reliability and selectivity of the opinions the county offers as support. Mr. England has altered his opinion 4 times since December 2021. He testified before the court that he is not a structural engineer, he relies on the opinions of experts, and he does not dictate the type of abatement mandated by his adjudication orders, but leaves those options to the building owner. Now I want to jump down to the footnote to this for a minute, because this has some very telling information. And this is from the footnote. The court is troubled by Mr. England's apparent lack of communication cooperation with the city as expressed during the attorney's conference concerning Troy officials' inquiries into the repairs Mr. England believes are necessary and his deadline for those repairs to be accomplished. If Mr. England is unwilling to relate the specific repairs needed, perhaps he could have referred to the city to the expert upon which he relies. This just begs an ultimate question. Why the heck are we still employing this guy? Why are we wasting money on an obviously unqualified individual? The courts have seen it. Why aren't you seeing it? In closing, I'm going to say this. The shenanigans, and yes, I'm going to use that word, the shenanigans need to stop. Now, Mr. Tibbins, I understand you have about 4 years left on your contract, and I want to hear an answer to this from Mrs. Oda. There's been rumors running hell west and rampant that there's going to be a retire and rehire in 4 years. Are you going to commit to not doing a retire-rehire with this gentleman if that comes down to it? Mr. Tiddington, please.
Mr. Tiddington?
No, he's supposed to be...
This is not a question and answer time.
I'm addressing...
He's addressing council.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Thank you, Mr. Lutz, if I may be permitted to continue. The shenanigans need to stop. And I'm going to ask the question again. And I'm addressing council on this because this is what council needs to hear. Now, Mr. Lutz, I have a question for you. And I have a question for you. Do you approve of people playing games during company time? Do you approve of that?
Did I approve people playing games
during company time?
I don't have any authorization to make that
okay, well then that's
determination, Mr. Barron.
That's fine. That's fine. I won't go any further with that then. We won't get into a shouting match about that. But I just think we need to take a long, hard look at who we are employing. We have a contract with the county to use Rob England and but with the questions that the court is now answering, when is the city going to break his contract and say enough is enough, fire the guy, and get it over with? I think that's questions you need to take a look at and get the road back open while we're at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banger. Anyone else wishes to address council, please come forward, give your name and address, and take as much time as you wish to consume.
Good evening. Ben Sutherland, Troy Historic Preservation Alliance, 110.5 West Main Street. I come forward to address you on a topic that has probably given our city one of the biggest migraines it's had in decades, the 112 to 118 West Main Street building. No doubt you're tired of hearing about this building. Trust us, we know your level of frustration. Like you, we have lived it for 3.5 years. If you take nothing else from my remarks this evening, please remember these 7 words. It is not too late to collaborate. I want to take a step back for a minute and pass a book around to all of you. It was just published a couple of months ago. The title is A Madman's Will, and it focuses on the amazing journey of nearly 400 formerly enslaved people who were freed by John Randolph, who had to fight for their freedom in a Virginia court for 13 years and then faced a hostile reception when they arrived in Mercer County, Ohio in 1846 to settle on land that had been provided to them. Most of these freed people ultimately settled in Miami County and had to register in the Old County Courthouse, the rear portion of the 112 to 118 building, under Ohio's black laws. The association of this building with one of the largest manumissions in American history is truly remarkable and gives this building great historical significance. It's an incredible story of national consequence, and Troy and Miami County are an important part of that story. Many Ohio towns would love to have a building with this kind of remarkable history. Why would we in Troy and Miami County turn our back on that by tearing this courthouse down? It's not too late to collaborate. Mr. Kimmel's lawsuit against the City of Troy and his appeal of Judge Wall's ruling threatened to turn the situation around the building at 112 to 118 West Main into a legal quagmire. July 11th, 1 week from tomorrow, will mark 3.5 years since a tornado hit downtown Troy, and the sidewalk has been closed. And now the street is closed as well. Further delays are not what any of us want. Why not put our collective energy toward collaboration? Even after Troy City Council rejected a donation of the building, Troy Community Works is actively exploring the possibility of being a part of the solution. While those efforts are TCWs to further share and discuss with you, it is likely the fastest way to get West Main Street open, and it is also the least expensive option for the city. Necessary repairs to the building could be made within a matter of weeks. Otherwise, the current legal debacle could drag on for months. Let's get our sidewalk and street reopened as soon as possible for the sake of our historic downtown and its small businesses. It's not too late to collaborate. Besides resolving any alleged public safety issues at the lowest cost possible to the taxpayer, this option saves our historic streetscape. We have a very eloquent new member of THPA, a retiree who now lives in Bethel Township, and here are some excerpts of what he shared through Facebook this week. He wrote, "I grew up in this area, wandered the aisles of McCrory's, shopped with my parents for shoes at Vogel's, got my hair cut at Yavi's. And then I moved away and spent my entire adult life in other places. When I retired and returned, I was stunned to see how beautiful and preserved downtown Troy was. The old businesses I remember had changed over to new, but the town itself struck me as frozen in time's storybook. Today I stood across the street from the Tavern building and looked left and right to the south along Main Street. It was an unbroken line of historical buildings, from the traffic circle to Mola Brew Barn. In this day and age, that is a significant achievement for a town the size of Troy. Walk along the sidewalks of New Carlisle, and you can see what indifference creates. Troy, losing that building, will be losing a little bit of your collective historical soul." Well said, Mr. Lear. He's absolutely right. It's not too late to collaborate. We need the City of Troy and Miami County to create a repair option for this building. Matt Simmons is your fire chief, Rob England, chief building official. If the end goal here is to address public safety, creating a repair option for this building is the fastest way to get the street and sidewalk reopened, and it will ensure that the city doesn't throw more good taxpayer money after bad. It's not too late to collaborate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland.
Good evening. Courtney Hart. I am at 2277 US Route 40 in Tip City. I am the owner of Ivy Court. I know earlier it was said that you guys are all probably tired of hearing about this and the elephant in the room. Frankly, I am too. But now, unfortunately, all of this has now affected my family. I had brought my kids here earlier because I wanted you guys to see that these decisions that are being made are affecting your downtown businesses, and they are affecting true people. I'm not emotional, by the way. Just in 2016, my husband and I, we started Ivy Court in our basement. In 2019, I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. In 2020, just as I was finishing my cancer treatment and looking forward to returning to work, the pandemic came upon us, and my company went on a hiring freeze. Ryan and I made the decision to sell our home and take the equity to open our first Ivy Court shop in July of 2020. The shop was well received, we saved our profits, and we opened our second Ivy Court in October of 2020. Our second shop was well received. We saved our profits. We made sacrifices. We worked endlessly, and we opened Ivy Court Troy in June of 2021. It was well received. We saved. We worked endlessly. We made sacrifices. And day after day after day, our customers showed up and we provided for our family. In December 2022, 2 days before Christmas, the construction company arrived in front of our Troy shop unannounced to begin the ongoing construction on West Main Street. Obviously, we knew the construction was coming, but we had no clue when. We assumed there would be clear communication on something so significant. That day, I went down to City Hall in tears 2 days before Christmas, the busiest time of the year for a retail shop. And I pleaded for clear and consistent communication moving forward regarding the construction. We were told the construction would last 2 months, 60 days, in front of our shop. So what did we do? we planned for two months, 60 days. In late May 2023, I met with Mayor Oda, Jill Rhodes, and Patrick Teeterton at our shop to discuss how the last 6 months of ongoing major road and sidewalk construction on West Main Street had nearly forced us to close Ivy Court in Troy. We had customers fall on the gravel. We had customers who couldn't shop because the sidewalk was impassable at times. And we were asked to close our shop to complete construction. We borrowed money from our parents. I sold my engagement ring to make payroll. We sold our home. We closed one Ivy Court. And our family made sacrifices every single day. Every day. We wanted Ivy Court Troy to survive. And so if you didn't catch that, we made sacrifices. These three city representatives knew Ivy Court was down nearly 50% year over year. And we needed business to get back to normal after the past 6 months of major construction. June 22nd, 2023, the last of the major sidewalk construction was completed, and Ivy Court Troy celebrated its second anniversary the weekend following. That Saturday of the celebration, June 24th, at 2 p.m., without any notice, city trucks, barricades, and police officers arrived in front of our shop and closed West Main Street. Ryan, my daughter, and I were all at the shop assisting customers and had no clue what was happening. We were told the road was closed indefinitely because of the safety of the tavern building across the street. There was no communication from the city to any of the businesses on our block. None, nothing, just silence. To this day, there's still been a sincere lack of communication, leaving us with questions. Are we safe? Are our customers safe? What are the next steps in opening the street back up? What's the timeline? How can we work with the city to make the best of this? How do we, as business owners, plan for our business future? No information, no meetings, no communication, and what feels like no care. This is our story about our small business. I'm positive there are stories of sacrifice, hard work, and grit throughout the downtown Troy businesses. We donate to local charities. We provide services and goods that many of you enjoy. We support our local community in so many ways, and in exchange, we provide for our families. On behalf of all the downtown Troy businesses, we are requesting clear and consistent communication regarding the street closure on West Main Street so that we may continue to plan and conduct our business. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Tough act to follow, but I'm going to take a shot at this. David Denoyer, 535 Peters Avenue. I've stood in this room countless times. I was not even a decade ago manning a camera at the back, filming these council meetings. I've been in Troy all my life, and I come to you not today as little David Denoyer that you guys may have known. I'm a citizen now, I'm 31, and on June 25th, I took it upon myself to go downtown, and I crafted this Facebook status I'm going to share with all of you right now. Let's take a few minutes to assess that the city of Troy has deemed a perfectly reasonable fix for the current standing of the old courthouse fiasco, shall we? In the last 24 hours, the city has deemed that due to Judge Wall's desire not to move forward with demolition and wanting another structural assessment, that West Main Street is no longer safe and has shut it down till further notice, for public safety and fear of structural collapse. taking out a minimum of 26 parking spaces for 5-plus local businesses who now have only sidewalk access for customers, 3 and up of which are brand new and recently opened. As a result, drivers now have to divert around block to detour through the town on a street that sees a steady flow of traffic day and night due to direct access to Interstate 75. But let's get back to the businesses. According to Shopify, one of the most popular tools for small businesses, the average small business needs a minimum of $40,000 to begin operation, not counting overhead costs. For every $100 spent in a small business, $48 to $68 of that goes into the local economy, and they generate 44% of the U.S. economic activity. That is on Forbes, if you would like to look it up yourselves. It takes the average starting business 2 to 3 years to make profit from opening day. These businesses have already had approximately 6 parking spots out of commission for over 3 years now, and their entire parking access at the front has been closed off barely 2 weeks after the Strawberry Festival, while thousands of citizens and visitors walk in front of a possibly collapsing structure. Summer is the second highest spending season for people, meaning that these stores rely on big business in these months, and now their patrons only have sidewalk access to the businesses, meaning these 26 unusable parking spaces now are limiting the businesses' patronage massively. The average vehicle carries 2 to 4 people, which are potential customers, who will typically spend $20 to $100 at a local business. If we go by standard operation hours for these businesses, it would be 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., if not later. The average small business relies on one customer for a quarter of its total revenue, meaning the other 75% is new customers. If we go by a 2-hour parking rotation with these 26 spaces, these businesses just lost a minimum of 350 potential customers for these small businesses, meaning thousands of dollars lost by this decision to shut down West Main Street. These businesses have done nothing wrong and have been extremely patient with the city, has left the tavern building to become more susceptible to the possible damage, structural ruin. How is it justifiable to make the revenue generators of your local city pay for the incompetence? What kind of message does this send for city support for these small businesses that are trying to attract visitors to our city to spend money and keep us growing? The fact of the matter is that this was a childish and bold move for the city of Troy to make, and only goes to show what they really think of those that you claim to support and fight for. It's time for the people of Troy to voice their opinion now, more than ever, if we want Troy to continue and grow to be the town that we've all come to know and love. Punishing small businesses is not the answer. You say you're for the city's growth and longevity? Act like it. Give the citizens the actual truth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
Good evening. I'm probably a new face to you, some of you. I am Jody Snyder. I live at 2295 Murphy Lane East here in Troy. I have lived in Troy for 20 years. I call this home. I may not have been born and raised here, but this is where I raised my family. In my opinion, Mayor Oda, you acted emotionally. I get it. We've all been in places where we make a snap decision. We made a decision without a well-thought-out plan what was going to happen after the decision in response to another elected official's decision. Judge Wall made an impartial decision to obtain an independent assessment, the very job we elected her to do for us. I would like to know on what information was the building deemed so unsafe, as others have already stated, that just 3 weeks prior to that, we had tens of thousands of people in downtown Troy walking around, behind, throughout that space. It's a time, and I agree, I borrowed your word, I didn't know who you were. It's time for the people of Troy to voice our opinion. Why am I here? Because I've sat back and watched. I vote regularly, I teach my kids to vote, but finally I thought, it's time for those of us who sit on the sidelines to have a voice. I'm not part of the Historical Society. I support our downtown businesses. I'm thankful for the downtown businesses who have supported the athletic teams that my children have participated in year after year after year, when I know particularly Ivy Court has supported the wrestling team when money was tight, but they still were a sponsor to our events. My questions, how long will the detour remain? We entered into a decision without an end plan. Is it going to be 3 years? What's going to happen when school starts up? What's going to happen when winter comes? What's going to happen? I've already rerouted. I drive to Columbus a couple of times a week. I now don't visit the downtown businesses because I can't, in a reasonable amount of time, get to Winans or Bakehouse Breads or one of the other coffee shops and still make it down to 41 into Springfield and on to Columbus. What about the other buildings that surround this building? Are they safe? Is the building at imminent risk? You know, based on the decision that was made to close down the streets, and then the weather that came in through this last weekend, you would have expected the front of that building to topple over. Yet, that building has remained longer than every one of us in this room. And how were the small businesses affected? Were you given any advance notice? But now we know that question. The advance notice was an officer walking into their business saying, please move your cars now. That was the advance notice. We are punishing our small businesses for the lack of our elected officials doing their jobs well and making decisions on behalf of all the citizens of Troy. It's not too late, Mayor Oda. It's never too late in county government. That's the beauty of what brings us to our work, is there's always an opportunity to humble yourself, admit you made a reactive decision, not a responsive decision with a well-laid-out plan. Do the right thing for the small businesses of Troy, for the residents of Troy, and reverse the decision to close a block of Main Street indefinitely. I don't want to be here in 3 years, but I guarantee you this event has called me to action as a citizen of Troy. City council members, as the representatives of our voices that we elected for you, I ask that you please use your authority to reverse this decision to close Main Street and allow our small businesses to thrive. Respectfully, Jody Snyder.
Thank you, Jody. Mr. Tittington.
Probably should have prefaced this at the beginning, because there's a lot of misinformation that's out there. And if I can have the floor. So, June 16th was the day that really changed the status of the Tavern building. Not June 3rd, not even June 5th, which was another inspection that had happened. June 3rd being the Strawberry Festival. At that time, we were under the old inspection from months ago. We had no reason to believe that there was anything dire with this building. On the 16th is the day that our chief building official, our fire chief, his two assistant chiefs, as well as the county's contracted structural engineer who advises the chief building official, went through that building, went through the entire building, went up in the attic into places that apparently nobody had gone into before. When they came out of it, the structural engineer immediately said to the chief and the CBO that, yes, this building is in very bad shape. It can't be repaired. It needs to be demolished. That is not a lie. That is exactly what happened. On the 16th, that same afternoon, the county prosecutor, on behalf of the chief building official, filed a motion with Judge Wall to order Mr. Kimmel, or the property owner, to resolve the issue by demolishing the building. There's an injunction in place, and so the county prosecutor felt that he had to go to the judge to get permission to, I guess, dismiss the injunction, whatever the legal action is that's involved. The judge had a brief meeting with the county prosecutor that afternoon to understand the motion. At that time, we thought, well, if this is that dangerous, if this is unsafe and dangerous, do we need to close the building, or close the road immediately? It was decided that because this was such an emergency, we wanted to see and defer to the judge to take some kind of action, whatever that action was. It wasn't until Tuesday in the morning that she held a video conference with the various attorneys, did not hold an evidentiary hearing, just a conference with the attorneys, and then it wasn't until that Friday that she, on the 23rd, that late in the morning, she issued her provisional decision. It's, I guess, not a final decision, but it's a provisional decision, where she declined to take any final action, but she did have some orders for the property owner. Chief amongst them was by this coming Friday, he was to repair the front wall of the building, the north wall of the building, in consultation with the chief building official and the fire chief, who have said, no, this building needs to come down. So how they resolve that, we don't know, but in the meantime, we had to decide if we had pushed our luck enough, because again, we were under a declaration, a certification by those officials under the state the state building code as well as the state fire code that it was in imminent danger, it was unsafe and dangerous. So that's why on Saturday, late in the morning is when we decided that we really need to do something. We weren't sure exactly how quickly we could do it. We had a bunch of logistics to come together. It's a Saturday, everybody's off. We had to get street crews in, we had to mobilize the police department. It was not...
Excuse me, what do you have to say? Club acts. Hey, you gotta step up.
So as soon as we could communicate, we communicated with what we knew when we knew it. There was a lot going on. We issued a press release at the very same time, as quickly as possible, well, immediately. That also included all of our social media outlets. Are there things that we probably could have done quicker, or, well, we couldn't do them quicker, but because we were not going to send something out with uncertainty as to when we were going to be able to close the road, but certainly if we could have thought it through a little bit more, we would have knocked on the doors and said, this is what's going on. There is still a lot of uncertainty. The question has been asked, when are we going to open this building? That's not a decision we can make. We cannot make that decision, and the only thing that we said, and we said it in the press release, and we said it in the media since then, is we will be able to remove those fences at the time that the CBO, an instructional engineer, say that it's safe to do so. We don't know when that is. We really don't. Now, in the meantime, in the last week, we have spent trying to monitor the detours, or the detour that we have in place. We have modified that detour to make it easier for truck traffic to get around, and to avoid having to do the little loop if they didn't have to. At the end of the week, we determined that we could cautiously open up 11 of the up to 26 spots. I didn't count how many had been blocked because of the tavern building from day one, but 11 of the spots within the barricaded area, but outside the fence, outside the fall zone. So we continue to make modifications as much as we can, and while we're monitoring the situation as closely as we can. We can't control the process. We can't control the legal process or the building inspection process or anything like that. We only can go with what we have. And if there is a document out there that says that this building is that much of a hazard, then we have first and foremost an obligation to protect the public safety, and that's the vehicles and that's pedestrians. We just spent $2,400 to put 6-foot tall hurricane fencing around the building so that we could push the barricades off the sidewalk so that the entire north sidewalk could be open because it's technically outside the fall zone. There is a minimal risk to that, but there's always some risk. So we are trying to adjust as much as we possibly can, given the circumstances that we're in. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Brandon, 105 Crestwood. I want to ask you one thing.
We're going to allow other residents to speak. You've already had the podium. If there's other Mr. Behringer, we're gonna let other residents who would like something to say have the opportunity to do so. So anyone else in the audience that has anything they wish to say, please come forward and give your name and address.
I'm Martin Stewart, 1486 Cheshire Road. Alternate theory to what happened. City was expecting the mayor to rule in Mr. Kimmel's favor. They didn't. The judge, rather. And so this was a reaction to that, politicized the situation. There are some that say that the barricades were already ready to go Friday night. So wouldn't be possible for it to be all of a sudden something happened on Saturday. I like Mr. Kimmel's use of the word push our luck. If the building was really that dangerous, luck shouldn't play into it. Should have shut it down long ago. You didn't. And it's weird how the building was dangerous. You had to shut the whole street down, all the parking spaces and all the sidewalks. But then there was an uproar from the business community. Well, maybe it's not that dangerous. Let's open up this part. Oh, wait, let's let people drive in the circle, because, I'm sorry. This is a joke. The whole thing's a joke. Bill, you had a thing in one of your mailers or one of your email mailers about why people don't get involved with local government. This is why. This is why.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
Amy Shannon, 1560 Windridge Place, Apartment D, here in Troy. If I may read to you directly from Robin Oda, Mayor of Troy, Ohio's June 26th comment. We were working towards the closure of West Main by noon on Friday, but at mid-morning we're notified that the judge had issued her ruling. We paused the process until we read the ruling. We determined Saturday morning we would continue with the closure. This is the problem we're all having. Do you notice there's two different stories? We don't know the truth. The amount of rhetoric that has come from the city staff, the amount of chaos that has been developed through all this, is just unbelievable. And I kind of go back to 3.5 years ago. Why was this building not dealt with then? I don't know a homeowner that could have had that much damage to their home that they would not be getting followed up on, that there would not be questions raised, that there would not be tickets given on these are the things you have to repair or we're going to tear it down. Why did everything sit for so long? Why, when our planning commission agreed to tearing it down, did we come to find out then in the courts that they did not follow their own rules and bylaws? That to me says the planning commission needs to be overhauled. We need people on the planning commission that know the rules, the laws, that know history, that know architecture, that know these things, and there needs to be more than just a couple. These things need to be addressed. We need you to come forward. We need to have honesty. We need to have the truth. And we need to quit having these games being played with the town that we all love and that we want to stay in. I personally know 5 families that are leaving Troy because of this. They are sick to death of the games and the lies and the absolute BS. It's got to stop. It has to stop somewhere. We're asking for it to stop now. My personal opinion is that this really leads entirely on the city staff, but city council is kind of step up and do something about that.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Tittington?
So just a couple of things that Ms. Shannon said. First of all, 3.5 years ago, we did initiate some property maintenance orders, but we're advised not to pursue them because the property owner was pursuing his remedies. 3.5 years of litigation is what has followed. There is no... We're not telling different stories here between Friday and Saturday, between Mayor Oda and myself. We had been preparing for a closure, possible closure, prior to Saturday. We didn't have all of the barricades loaded up, we had some of them. We weren't sure what we were doing on Friday or Saturday.
Mr. Tittington, please continue.
Thank you. So since we want to get technical and we want to call, accuracy, we had the Type 3 barricades that were loaded up on the trucks at the street department. We also had a series of bike racks that we also used so that we could frame the sidewalks. Sidewalks that, for the most part, we tried to keep open even before we finalized the plans to barricade and to block the streets. So we had some of it, but we still had a lot to do on Saturday, and we were not sure that we were going to be able to pull it off on Saturday. We had talked about Friday, we had talked about it before, even before Judge Wall's decision was issued on Friday. You're not going to believe me when I say this, but, it had nothing to do with her decision except that she finally issued that decision. Finally, the Planning Commission was not the body that was called into question by Judge Wall's decision when she initially ruled. That was the Board of Zoning Appeals. The Planning Commission was not a party to the lawsuit. The Board of the Board of Zoning Appeals was. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tittington. Please come forward, give your name and address.
Good evening, Derek Potts, 6360 Newbury, Washington Road in Pickle, Ohio. I've been a business owner here in Troy for 20 years and absolutely love Troy. Absolutely love it. Our downtown, I love our downtown. I love our local businesses. And I love to see business succeed and flourish, and especially in our downtown area. I think what we have let happen and take place with this building is unfortunate. And the situation that we're in now is very unfortunate. The fact that there has been no interest in this building prior to Mr. Kimmel purchasing this building, and now there's interest in it. There's been no history brought out prior to Mr. Kimmel buying this building until it was too late. So I appreciate what they're trying to do, and I appreciate preserving history. I love history, love the history of this building and everything that's brought about out. Very important. But I think it's naive to also think that we can preserve absolutely everything. I know as a business owner that there are times where we have to just start fresh, and sometimes that's necessary. Because economically, it's not feasible to keep going down that same path of rebuild. It just doesn't work. I want to see all the business downtown succeed. I love our downtown business. My heart goes out to every business owner that's dealing with challenges right now. It's an unfortunate position that they have been put in, and I will do everything I can to make sure that they have my support throughout this. I ask that you guys just continue to look at the opposite side of it as well. I know your hands are tied. There's not much you can do. But I do believe it's time for progress to take place on this building. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Davis, 412 Ella Street, Toronto. One question. You guys had an opportunity to take the building. If it's so dangerous, why don't you just take the building and tear it down? If it's so dangerous, you're wasting money on putting signs up and blockades up and paying people. Why don't you just take the building from the guy and tear it down if it's that bad? I mean, I'm with you guys saving the building, don't get me wrong, but clearly half the group wants it tore down, the other group doesn't. This is just getting kind of petty. You're screwing everybody's lives up at this building. How come you're not holding this guy responsible for this? When my car set out back, I got letters. I got told 30 days of towing my car. That's all I want to know. How come you didn't buy the building when you had, he's going to give it to you? You could have tore it down and ended this whole problem. So that's all I'd say. Have a good day.
Thank you, Chris.
Hello, my name is George Hurley. I live at 236 North Elm Street. Ben read part of a letter that was posted to the Facebook recently, but he didn't finish the letter, and I thought he left out some parts that were important. I'd like to finish that letter from Mitch Lear. I don't know who he is. He says that he used to live here. When he was a kid, he moved away, spent his entire life in other places, and then when he retired, he returned. He was stunned to see how beautiful and preserved downtown Troy was. The town, he said, he describes it, was struck in frozen in time storybook. I moved here 14 years ago from Texas, and my wife and I, to be close to our grandkids who are living here, and that is exactly how it struck us to move here. We just couldn't believe it. I've lived all over the place. I've never seen a town frozen in time. And I've told all my friends back in Texas that I live in Mayberry. A lot of young kids don't even know what that is, but that's exactly how it's felt to me this almost 15 years I've been here. It's like Mayberry, it's just frozen in time. Kids riding bikes and stuff. I was in Austin, Texas, where everybody's hair was blue and every orifice had a earring in it, and you didn't see kids. I saw young people walking their dogs all the time, people in their 20s and 30s walking dogs and stuff. I never saw kids. And here they're everywhere. And so it just blew my mind that there was places like this still in the world. Mitch goes on to say, I've lived other places where there was much less affection for the past, and historic buildings were raised without thought. However, I gave the raising some thought, and I finally realized once a building is gone, it can't be retrieved, and future citizens are left with a hole in their community, or laughably a modern and shoddy structure plugging that hole to remind them of something precious that was lost. And I've seen this picture on the internet, I don't know if you've seen it, of the before and after picture of what will happen once this building is taken down. There's going to be a visible hole there. I've been told there's going to be a parking lot. I've been told it's going to be a grassy area like a lot of places are. Let the audience see that picture in case you haven't seen it. It's been on the internet all over the place. And I've seen, what's been done in Pickle when they tore down the schools. Just grassy areas, perfectly nice-looking brick structures that were raised. I've even been told there'd be a nice hotel or something in that space, and I look over there like where Sirius Garage is, and I'm not trying to knock Sirius Garage. I'm sure it's a great business, but the building it's in is just a shoddy little modern building, a crummy little thing. I could care less if they raise that. We're across the street from there, directly across the street from there, is a big old concrete parking area with a little dinky building that's going out of business. Everybody's been in that. Those would be much bigger spaces than this to build a parking lot or a boutique hotel, Let me just finish Mr. Lear's letter. He said that, I also want to say, at the time I've been back, I haven't had any trouble finding parking on the square or around the courthouse, at the hangar. And even if I did have trouble, it would be worth the walk for the sake of preserving Troy's old buildings. I'm kind of paraphrasing what he wrote. He said, if Troy loses that IOF Tavern building, then we'll be losing a piece of our collective historical soul. I definitely agree with him. I've lived in Europe for 6 years, And, and I've traveled in other places in Europe that were even, I was in Germany and France, but when I went to Rome, I was overwhelmed by the antique, the whole city is one big museum. And all those buildings, you can look it up on the internet, of the repurposing of these 2,000-year-old ancient Roman structures. They live in them. They work out of them. When I lived in Germany, the little town of Friedberg, the old castle there, I don't know how old it was probably 500, maybe 1,000 years old, was a modern, we were using it as a university. The kids, I could see them bicycling in or driving in across the moat and into a very old structure, much older than this daggum thing. My dad spent his entire life in civil service, military and civil service. I worked for the feds, I worked for the state, and I used to tell my coworkers, I wasn't very popular with them, and I would remind them, hey, everybody's going on a coffee break, you're entitled to your 15-minute coffee break, but there's a whole room of people out here waiting to be serviced by us. The ladies with crying kids, hey, it's my coffee break, George, shut up. And I would remind them, those people pay our salaries. We work for them. They don't work for us. We're civil servants. They pay our salaries for their taxes. And I just want to remind you all that tomorrow we celebrate the Declaration of Independence, where our country rebelled against their sitting government because they were unresponsive to the people. The people were to be served. They are the masters of the government. And the British government didn't agree with that, so the American citizens, our founders, raised arms against the sitting government to prove to them that we are the masters and the government works for us. And as far as this building being unattached, sir, I've spent a couple of years in construction, and I'm certainly not an expert. You can't be in just a couple of years. You're just basically learning some of the basics. But I've done roofing, and I've worked on framing, and I've done siding, and I've done all kinds of things in a couple of years that I was in the remodeling business with the local business here. And the situation you described sounds like a pretty easy remedy as far as, every structure is basically a cube, with 4 vertical walls and then a top side and a bottom side. So if one of those sides loosens up to one another, you reattach it somehow. With wood, with metal plates, with lots of screws, that needs pressure applied to one of the edifices, that can be done with, you have modern equipment. Just like I said, with my experience of living around old structures, thousands of years old, and I see this situation here, it's almost laughable. There's got to be some high, a little bit more thought given to, fixing the problem if that indeed exists. And I got to say, Mayor and all of you, there is a lot of suspicion out here that there must be something going on to turn our city from this beautiful picture to this ugly picture of a hole in it. That is there some kind of bribe going on? We're living at a time where the national government has, really proven to us, the CIA and the FBI, that there can be compromise in the highest places of our government. It's very shocking to me. I would have never believed it until I've seen it the last, few years. And so there's a lot of rumors going on. Why would anybody want to tear down this building, whether it's older or, ailing or not, to make this whole? There must be something, a reason. I would like to hear that reason tonight if somebody could explain to me. You just like green. Do you really need parking that bad? Because I said, I have a vivid imagination, and I know some of you folks, and I know how good you are, good-hearted. I've voted for some of you folks every time you've run, except maybe it's the last election.
I would like to hear an explanation, because we all have some suspicions in our mind what's going on. It can't be just this building is old and we need a new parking lot. I appreciate your time very much, and I appreciate you devoting your time for the community here. I know it's a lot of work, and you have to put up a lot of opposition, but I hate to be on the opposition tonight, but I really think preserving Troy is worth it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Tittington.
Thank you. Just to clarify a couple of things. First of all, you mentioned that it might be easy to fix the walls, and I don't know. I don't pretend to know. Most of us that have been involved in this don't know. What I do know is that there have been 6 different structural engineers that have taken a look at it. They've had, they haven't really had 6 different opinions. They've had different degrees of opinions. And I know that might sound like a distinction without a difference, but it's just a matter of who thinks that something bad is happening quicker than it really is. So there's a lot more involved. It's not just the walls. It's not just a hole in the roof, which is a tarpable, at least temporary solution. When we were contemplating accepting donation of this building, we were hopeful that it was simple, that there was only a need to fix some loose bricks, fix some parapet, and tarp the roof in the rear, to the rear of the building. That would have been a $31,000 fix. It is only, again, after they started getting up into the attic, and when they started seeing trusses and beams and support structure in the attic that were hidden from everybody, that were fractured, that were cracked, some of them broken in half, that it continued to escalate. I'm in no position to question that. I don't think anybody here is in that position. We have to depend on the experts, and in this case, the expert is the chief building official and his structural engineer. The other thing on the picture, the parking lot, when it left the administrative side and went into Common Pleas Court, it was not a parking lot. The plan that was accepted, that was approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals, included a replacement building. There is a rendering in all of the filings that occurred. The parking lot idea was abandoned 3 years ago or more. So for some reason, that rhetoric continues to percolate and spread, but that was a very, very old plan that they abandoned a long time ago. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Please give your name and address.
My name is Donna Elko, and I live at 1348 Fleet Road, and I just so happen to be the listing agent and the selling agent of this particular building that I had listed for 6 months. The idea that there was no interest in this building is absolutely ridiculous. As a matter of fact, I had 2 contracts on it. I had 3 architects in it. I had contractors in it. Every single one of them stated that it was sound. The other thing is, for a building to be sold, you have to be allowed in it. No one's been allowed in this building for 3 years, and it's been listed under contract. So when you look at it in the LoopNet, it's considered under contract. So the idea that we're going to propose that this building doesn't have any life left in it and nobody wants it is an outright lie. Patrick, this one is for you. I am tired of your excuses, your lies, your backpedaling, and everything else you've done. You've had engineering reports that agreed with each other.
Mrs. Altos, keep personalities out of it, please.
I was trying to finish a sentence. We had 2 engineering reports that agreed with each other. When you were about to get the 3rd one, you had to throw a wrench in the fire, just like you hired Patrick Hansford. He admitted doing it. He put it on Facebook. He also said that you called him in since 2020.
He was not hired by the city. We had no idea he was doing what he did.
Well, then you better tell him that, because he didn't say that. He said that he was brought in several times. So I just want to say that it would be nice for once to be honest, because we have lost integrity in you and your leadership and your ability to tell the truth.
Anyone else wish to address the council this evening? All right, I do have a question. Regardless of whether the decision was made on the 23rd or the 24th to shut the street down, was any effort given to contact Troy Main Street to try to reach out to businesses to say, this is what's going to happen and these are some of the ramifications you may expect?
There was not any separate, but we did think that they were part of the distribution. They were not. We have corrected that moving forward and have had numerous conversations with them since.
What do you mean by distribution?
Distribution list, when we send out press releases, social media, we have a whole distribution list for the media and for stakeholders, because we want that message to get out as quickly as possible.
So they didn't even get the message at
They got the
2:17 on
message
Saturday?
They got it on, fairly quickly when they, I know the chamber did, and I think they were right there at the same time.
Whom did they get that message from?
They got it from social media.
So they didn't get it from us?
From our Facebook page. They got it from us through our social media.
Okay, all right. When the decision to add the parking spots and kind of the cul-de-sac that we created, was that decision communicated to the businesses? Or Troy Main Street?
Actually, yes.
That was?
Yes, because the director of Troy Main Street was there when we made the decision, and Ryan from Ivy Court, we were actually talking to him, answering questions and, following up with him at the same time.
Okay.
So, yes.
All right, thank you. Any other?
He's got a response.
Ms. Hart?
Yes, Courtney Hart. I think what we've heard a lot of tonight is that how do you, as a business owner, how do you make decisions on your business and all of this? Is it safe for people to come into my shop? Is this barricade that I could push over with my hand going to stop a falling building? I'm responsible for what happens to the people in my shop, legally. There has been no communication from Troy Main Street, which is not a taxpayer, that is a public service, to any of the businesses. If it weren't for Sam O'Neill, our building owner, we wouldn't know anything. And if it weren't for social media, which we all could agree is not the most accurate form of communication, none of us would know anything. I'm at a loss. I was hoping that I would feel more confident in how to move forward after Ryan attended the council meeting last week and we attended this week. I've talked to my parents, I've cried to my parents, I've talked to other business owners, and I don't know what to do. None of us know what to do. And we hope that it could be civil, and that it could be clear and concise and accurate and constant. But to this day, to this minute, there has not been clear or concise or accurate information given to us on a consistent basis. Thank you guys so much for letting me talk. And I love Troy too. I've patroned here for almost 20 years, and I wouldn't have decided to spend my hard-earned money and invest it in the city if I didn't believe in what you all stood for. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? This meeting is thankfully adjourned. I hope you all have a wonderful 4th. Our next meeting will be July